Welcome to Primordial Queen. I'm Jenny Rebecca. This sacred transmission is a descent into the inner worlds of your highest power and the royal embodiment of the integrated, dark, divine feminine within. Here, we remember, we reclaim, we rise through the psychic realms, ancient civilizations, and womb temples of creation. Together, we'll awaken the soul lineage that lives inside your bones. This is your return, beloved. Welcome home. Hello, beautiful queens. Welcome back to the Primordial Queen podcast. My name is Jenny. So today's episode title, can we just? It is, She Is a Note in the Song of Creation. And this was inspired by this insane parallel lifetime that I reclaimed, that I was able to experience and actually go to this timeline and visit this parallel self of mine. Akashic work, timeline work is so powerful because you can really visit parallel selves and receive so much from them. You know, if you're going to a timeline where it's this beautiful, powerful, higher being, you can receive healing and wisdom and activations and guidance. And alternately, if you are traveling to a timeline where maybe that version of you is struggling, you get to be like the spirit guide essentially and bring the healing and the guidance and the activations and whatever energy work is needed. And so in this particular case, the intention was I was teaching my Weaver of Light class and taking the women within that class to an Akashic timeline where we were going to meet our most powerful self and receive an activation from them. And this could mean anything, but it was held in the light and the intention of that it would be for the highest good of all involved and anchored in truth. And so I also get to experience these incredible things, not just facilitate them for my students. So here's the lifetime. So here's story time with Jenny now. So the first thing that happens is I walk through the portal that Archangel Michael creates into my Akashic realm, right? Into my Akashic, what do we want to call it? Like access point. Now, everybody's Akashic access point looks different. It's really personal. Some people really do see it as a library with books, and every book represents a lifetime, maybe. And really what they are is timelines though, right? You know, your Akashic records are not just this dusty old library that's not alive. It's filled with life. It is lifetimes. And many of them are parallel and still active. So for me, my Akashic place or access point doesn't look like a library. It looks like a garden, this beautiful fountain in the center of a garden with benches all around. And then all of these pathways that lead off from the central point into just different directions. And if I walk down the pathway long enough, the landscape and the environment starts to change into the lifetime that I'm walking into. So the pathways are entry points to timelines, basically. So in order to be guided to the right timeline, you actually have on your spiritual team a guide that is called the Akashic Gatekeeper. And this Akashic Gatekeeper looks different for everyone. Again, it's very personal to you. Mine is this dark divine, of course, angelic being that has hawk aspects. So she has hawk wings and a beak at the front and kind of like talons on her fingers, but she's very angelic at the same time. And so she always guides me when I go to my Akashic access point or this central hub for your timelines. And she brought me down the pathway that I needed to go, handed me a lantern, and then told me just to continue along on my own. And as I walked into this life where I had again set the intention to meet my most powerful self, not knowing at all what that would mean, but being so delighted and surprised, I walk into this cave. It's very dark. And across from me are three beings. And in between us is this pool of bubbling liquid, kind of swampy vibes. And I see a feminine version of me across from me, but on either side, there is kind of like henchman vibes, like these very tall, I want to say like a combination of like a warthog and a rhinoceros If anyone has ever done any work on Saturn, it very much looks like the beings on Saturn. So kind of like this tall, masculine, slightly humanoid, kind of like rhinoceros warthog being, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't. And so they're standing quite tall, standing upright like a man would stand, but a full animal aspect with like the horn coming out of the forehead and everything. And so they just have these long wooden paddles, and they're standing on the shore or the bank of this like swampy pool of water, and they are just stirring. And they're stirring in different directions. On the right-hand side of this other version of me is this henchman is stirring in a counterclockwise way, and on the left-hand side in a clockwise way, so it's almost like they're stirring up the pool in opposite directions to really blend it all together. And this version of me looks like Maleficent, swear to goddess. She has the horns, she has the black cape and everything. However, her eyes, when I looked into her eyes, they were these swirling nebula clusters of stars, very, very powerful. And her skin had this faint glow and a very light blue color. And so she was standing in between these two beings that were stirring, and she was adding all of these ingredients into the pool of liquid. And I saw her just gathering handfuls of different ingredients and dropping them into this pool, and then they would be stirred up, right? So I walked up to her and I gently put my hand on her wrist, I think it was, and said hello. And I tried to introduce myself. And it's not like it's like they almost like they can't see you until you start to interact, because a lot of the time in the Akashic realms, you're just an observer. And when you choose to interact, then you can. So I placed my hand on her wrist and I said, "Hi, like my name is Jenny. Do you know me?" And she looked at me like disgusted, like, "What? Like, who are you? What are you doing here?" And then I said, "I'm Jenny Rebecca. Do you know who I am?" And then all of a sudden I saw the recognition dawn on her when I said it in that way. And all of a sudden she was like, "Oh, I know who you are." And I asked her what her name was, and she opened her mouth, and this crazy sound came out. It sounded like a really deep foghorn with like a higher pitched like musical note on top. So like two very different sounds at the same time. And and I was just like, "Oh," because she just opens her mouth and this "huh" noise comes out, and I'm like, "Okay, I don't think I can say that, but, like, thank you for sharing your name." And then she said, it's she showed me, like, in my third eye, this letter S with a tiny little A up above it, almost like where you would put for a note, like a sharp symbol. So S and then a little A. So S sharp, if you will. But it was just SA. So I was like, "Okay, well, can I just call you Sa?" And she said that her name was a note in the song of creation. So that's who she was. She was a note within the song of creation. And it started to all make sense when I saw the work that she was doing. And so she said that the cave was deep in the bowels of creation. And then again, I'm very like clairvoyant, so I saw flash into my mind the great mother, the womb of all creation that we talked about in the last episode, has like levels to it, has deeper levels than what we see from the outside looking in. And so below the womb where things are formed are the bowels of creation, which is like a really interesting way to say this, where the ingredients get put together and then sent to the surface of the womb to be formed. And so we were in the bowels of creation, we were in the great mother, but deep in an inner realm of her womb, basically. And so she let me be a part of the work that she was doing, and she was showing me that she can create worlds. She can create species, worlds, stars, planets, universes, anything. But she wanted to make a planet with me. And she said, "We can choose to make this planet really abundant or not so much." And I said, "Let's make it really abundant." And so she told me to hold my two hands out, and she filled them with diamonds. And then I reached far over this pool of bubbling liquid and dropped them all in. And then she said, "What color do you want the planet to be?" And I was like, "Oh, purple." And so again, she told me put my two hands together, and she dropped into my hands this powdered dye, like a pile of purple powdered dye. And once again, I dropped that in. And then I mean, for lack of a better term, we're going to call them henchmen, were like stirring it all up. And I saw it all melt. And then when they stopped stirring, like when she wanted them to stop stirring so that she could see where the creation phase was at, she like um put her hands out across the water like stop, and the henchman would stop stirring, and then the surface of the water would get still instead of bubbling, and all of a sudden, almost like scrying, a reflection would appear on the surface of this pool of the planet that she was creating. And she could look at that reflection hovering on the surface and see if it was good, see if it was ready. And if it was ready, then she says, "It's good." And one of the henchmen would pull this lever, literally. This sounds like pull the lever, Kronk. This is very Yzma vibes from Emperor's New Groove. Pull the lever, Kronk. And then the liquid would just be sucked out of the bottom of this pool and go wherever it needed to go within the great womb to be formed into creation, right? And then they would start all over again. And it was just so, I was so captivated by this character of my, like of me, because you know, in every lifetime you're playing a character. You're not the pure soul. You're only the pure soul in between lives. And I just loved this character that I had chosen to play. She was so extra. She was so dramatic, you know, like chaotically, racing between piles of ingredients and plopping them into this pool. And when she thought it was ready, just like stop, and then everyone stops and she checks all intently. It's good, and then they pull the lever. It was just so chaotic and intense, and it was honestly so funny at the same time. Um, so I was there to meet my most powerful self, and I was there to receive an activation. And I had no idea what this version of me, what Sa, her name Sa, could possibly, you know, give me as an activation. So I just asked her, I said, like, I would really love to be activated into this gift that you have. I'm not quite sure how the gift works, what exactly how you know what to do, what you're doing with this creation role that you have. But I would love to be, if it's available and if it feels like it's for my highest good and you want to, I'd love to be activated into this gift because, we're the same, same soul can receive same gifts and activations. So she told me that she was going to activate the gift deep within my bones because the way that she felt her gift was deep in her bones. In her bones, she would just know what wanted to be created. Like she would know what wanted to come through. And then she would just know the elements that were required to bring it through. And that was it, right? So it was as simple as her just coming over and like placing her hand on the front of my left shoulder, kind of near my chest shoulder area, and closing her eyes for a moment and sending that gift into me, that deep knowing. And I remember this now, as she did that activation, I saw in my highest self, my earth self, highest human self, how this could be translated into business. Imagine just knowing deep within your bones what wanted to be created in business, right? Offers, content, whatever it is, what wanted to be created and the elements needed to bring it through. Which now I'm having this crazy deja vu moment because I literally had the download to create the Primordial Queen podcast and immediately did it. Like I just knew what needed to be created, what wanted to be created, what wanted to come through, and then the elements needed. Immediately just, created my intro, my outro, my branding, my everything, my description. It was just like bang, bang, boom, all in one evening. So I think it's already working, which is so cool. And just a couple of other things that I asked her before I left, because like, who doesn't want to know about the bowels of creation? My God. I asked her like how old she was. And she said, "Oh, there is no time here." Like they were outside of time. Oh, she had no idea. That didn't even make sense. Like age, no, there is no time in this place. And I said, "Okay, well, then how do you know like when you're done with your lifetime here? Like how do you know when you're gonna move on? Like if you don't die, then how do you know when it's just time to move on? And she said that when she didn't want to do it anymore, then she would just stop. Like, and my questions were so silly to her, like, oh no, there's no time here. And like me asking about, leaving the life, she's like, oh, like, well, when I don't want to do it anymore, I will just stop. And then I kind of saw like a vision of, a replacement would just be sent in, right? Somebody would know, okay, she's leaving, send in a replacement. There's like a line of, I'm sure, souls waiting to do this very cool job. She didn't need to eat. She didn't need to sleep. She didn't need to take a break. She just was in this, consistent creation mode. And so I asked her, like, what about, like, because I look at a lifetime and I'm like, well, am I really satisfied by this? So I asked her, like, what about love? Like, if this is all you do, and these henchmen don't even speak, by the way, maybe they do, and I just didn't, maybe not when I wasn't there, they would, but I don't feel like they're hanging out like they're friends. I feel like they're literally, this is all they do, is what I saw, just over and over and over again. And they just never get tired of it. They never need to eat or drink or sleep. It's like, okay, well, what about like feeling things? What about love? What about fun? What about bliss? And she said that she felt all that she added. So within these handfuls of ingredients, she would feel the frequency and the energy of it deeply throughout her body, bliss, grief, desire, etc. And I saw like her scooping up something, I don't know what it was, like she would feel every ingredient, abundance, desire, whatever. So I saw her pick up an ingredient and close her eyes, and it, like the feeling ran through her body, and she could hold on to it for as long as she wanted. They were definitely not rushing. Like they were taking their time. They were just really enjoying this experience. And then when she dropped whatever that was, the ingredient, into the pool, the henchmen that were stirring, I saw them pause for a moment in stirring, and like this little shiver go through them, and then they continued stirring. So they were feeling it too. So they were able to feel and experience things deeply, but they didn't have to hold on to it either. They could choose to hold on to it for as long as they wanted, or they could just drop it into the pool and move on, kind of thing. Um, and so right before I left, I asked her, like, can I come back to this place? Like, I would love to come and visit you. And her answer was, oh, I have nothing but time. Like, sure. And then I said, well, have you ever been anyone's spirit guide before? And that intrigued her because it was something she hadn't heard before. And she was like, spirit guide? No, I don't think so. And I was like, well, I have other parallel versions of me. Um, Truth bomb drop. Your spirit guides are just parallel versions of you. Okay, moving on. I have other parallel versions of me that I connect to in a sacred space, and we talk telepathically, and sometimes we visit astrally, and it's really helpful. I give guidance, I receive guidance, I give healing, I receive healing. It's like a family. And if you would be okay with that, I would love to include you in my sacred space and start to have those kinds of conversations with you, reach out to you for guidance every once in a while, or just your opinion and your thoughts. And she said, it can be done. Like, she was so cool, just the way she talked, just the way she was so freaking serious and intense, and like a cartoon character. I swear, it can be done. And then she just turned away and went back to whatever she was doing. I was like, okay, she's dismissed me, I'm gonna go. But really, I think this is I have recovered, I don't know how many lifetimes, so many I can't even count. This is my favorite one. This is my favorite one. Sa, who is a note in the song of creation, from the bowels of creation itself, just, chaotically, dancing from pile to pile and throwing ingredients into a swampy primordial pool so that it can be stirred, and then, the lever pulled and sent to the Great Mother to make it into a form to create from these ingredients. Yeah, that's my favorite lifetime I've ever seen before. And I think I would love to actually experience that firsthand. I mean, obviously I am. It's a parallel version of me, but I would love to go and have a round in that place as well. It sounds so fun. It was so fun. So I'm going to leave this here. I hope that you enjoyed this crazy lifetime, and come over to Instagram. Hit me up in the DMs, jennyrebecca.co over on Instagram, and let me know first of all, what you think about this insane episode in Lifetime. And if you have any crazy primordial style lives of being a creator of realities or worlds that you would like to share with me, because I'd love to hear it. Thank you so much, Queens. Until next time. The primordial queen within you is rising. Join us in the mastermind to expand your spiritual and psychic power. Until next time, stay crowned in your sovereignty, Queens.